What's good, YouTube? We're talking college sports in the Deep South where college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Kennard Vernon Stewart here once again for the podcast, talking about a little bit of Auburn football, and would encourage you to go ahead and like this video. Love the comments. Go ahead and comment on the video as well. And equally important to all that stuff, if you feel compelled to do so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the all button so you don't miss nothing. Okay, we're about 15 days away from opening kickoff Advocare Classic. Auburn will be taking on Oregon, whether you like it or not. It's happening. Now, if you are a fan going to the ball game, if you're an Oregon fan, you are encouraged to wear all green. If you are an Auburn fan, you are encouraged to wear all orange. That's going to be a very interesting color combination because there's no telling what Oregon is going to come up with schematically for their uniforms. And Auburn might even get a little slick with theirs. Might do some shoe. I would like to see like the all blue shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like counteracting what they did against Louisville. Maybe some all blue shoes. You know, that might work for the Tigers to kind of spice things up. To come, fashionably to that Advocare Classic, because it's going to be a show uniform-wise from the Oregon Ducks. But anyway, on to football. Auburn still is in the middle of a quarterback battle in which most media outlets would lead you to believe that Bo Nix has a slight edge over Joey Gatewood at this point. It's plausible because Bo Nix was, a record-breaking quarterback out of the state of Alabama. 1,200 total yards, most of them passing, though, 10,000 passing. Garnished pretty much every award that you could possibly receive as a high school quarterback. A lot of folks might not know that he really didn't have to play football. Dude has like a 4.14 grade point average. So if it doesn't work out in the NFL, pretty sure he can figure something else out. But I think Bo Nix will be an NFL quarterback. Joey Gatewood out of Bertram Trail, Florida, almost a 5-star recruit, has a unique ability. And that ability obviously is running the football and creating passing lanes once the run-pass option gets going. Not to take anything away from him, he's actually a pretty decent passer, but has shown shakiness in the deep ball. So, who starts? Most folks think he's still on the fence. Most folks think, Bo Nix. Others on the other side think Joey Gatewood. I'm going to tell you something that's going to be very important. Auburn has a very, very unique opponent in Oregon when the Advocare Classic takes place in a couple of weeks. Oregon was 9-4 last year, okay? In those 9 games, actually, we're going to talk about this first. Cadillac Williams and Gus Malzahn really emphasized the whole turnover thing with Auburn. Under Gus Malzahn's watch, Gus has actually been pretty good, only 78% when it comes to winning the turnover battle. Now, in games that he didn't win the turnover margin, he's actually 11-5. Games that he did, 29-8. Now, for some of you casual fans, you'll hear interviews where the coaches will say, we need to protect the ball. What does that mean? Why do you need to protect the ball? Well, turnovers are the great equalizers. You'll have a game like, say, for instance, Tennessee from last year for the Tigers. Auburn's still a better team to me. You know what I'm saying? I was a little disappointed about the game, but that Tennessee game was not a mere fraction of what Auburn had to offer as a football team. Auburn should have won that game by at least 2 touchdowns. Tennessee was not a great football team. But that's a great illustration as to how turnovers can equalize. Can really, really help equalize two opponents that are light years away from one another. Same way with Mississippi State. Auburn down 16-6 against Mississippi State. Boobie Whitlow had some shaky ball handling things going on. After a very nice run, would have put Auburn right back in the game even after field goal missed by Anders Carlson. Mind you, we talk about the field goals too. I was watching the Auburn and LSU game yesterday. I don't know, I've watched that game like a bunch of times. But outside, what a lot of folks don't mention is the fact that Anders Carlson actually missed a key field goal down the stretch that actually would have made that crazy touchdown that LSU scored. It would have put Auburn in a position where LSU would have had to score a touchdown to win the game instead of a field goal. That's how this game of inches things work, guys and gals. And I want you all to keep that in pocket, because I was like, man, I was watching the game, LSU, and I was like, oh, there is the hidden factor of this game. Not excusing any of the other items that happened, but that field goal missed by Anders Carlson cost Auburn in ways that they probably don't even imagine, or probably just now imagine. That's why we want that field goal percentage to go from 60%. Hell, if it can even go from 60% to 72%, I think that'll help Auburn out. Now, back to the topic of these turnovers. Gus Malzahn and Carnell Williams specifically made it clear that if you turn the ball over, you absolutely cannot play significantly for the Auburn Tigers. When we talk about this quarterback battle, I'm comfortable with whoever they put out there. You know what I'm saying? I think all of them both guys have the opportunity to accentuate Gus Malzahn's offense. Gus Malzahn shown that he could be potent when calling plays with a guy like Jarrett Stidham, Nick Marshall, Cam Newton, Chris Todd, whoever it is. But here's an important stat going into this Oregon game for the Tigers. Oregon was 9-4 last year. Lost some games that they probably shouldn't have. Won some games they probably shouldn't have. But when you look at Oregon as a team and some of the common denominators behind their victories, again, Oregon wins 9 games last year. In each of those 9 games, except for the game against Portland State, they were very good at causing turnovers. And it was actually pretty glaring when you look at it. The win against UCLA, for example, they won that game 42-24. But then when you really dissect how that possibly happened, Oregon actually forced 5 turnovers against UCLA. And then beating potential Pac-12 champion Washington, they forced 1 turnover. Forced 3 turnovers against UCLA in a lopsided win, and forced 4 in a 55-15 win over Oregon State. Now, conversely, when you talk about teams that you should beat and things of that nature, usually when you should have won a game, go over to ESPN.com, look at the actual game analytics, and look at the turnover margin and look at the time of possession. Usually that's a key point to look at. All right, so conversely for Oregon, in a 44-15 loss to Arizona, they turned the ball over 3 times. Ouch, man, you turn the ball over 3 times in a conference game. That's not going to work. That's what gets you a 44-15 loss. Now, in a game against Stanford for Oregon, I thought every time I watch this game, I've watched this game about 3 times. And it's eerily similar to how Auburn lost to LSU. They turned the ball over 3 times. You cannot turn the ball over 3 times in not only a high consequence conference game, but this was a top 15 matchup. Or I think Stanford was number 7, Oregon number 15. And it just goes to show how even as dominant as Oregon was in the Stanford game, how much those turnovers are impactful. Okay, so let's rewind this thing back to the Auburn Tigers. Auburn Tigers going into the 2019 season with a very, very low casual level of optimism, at least if the fan base tell it. You hear things like, oh man, I know we're probably going to be good, but I ain't ready to talk trash just yet. And rightfully so. A lot of question marks for the Tigers. the quarterback going into the Oregon game has to protect the ball. And Oregon is coming for the quarterback because they know that is a very vulnerable piece. They're coming up the middle. Caleb Kim, who struggled last year at the center position, I think they're gonna really push that middle to get the quarterback rattled to make some mistakes early. And why are early mistakes prevalent? If you think about Auburn in the 2014 game against Mississippi State, made a lot of mistakes early and could never recover from it. Almost, but just couldn't do it. That's something that Oregon is probably going to be looking at, not necessarily the Mississippi State game, but strategically. Disruption, chaos, causing turnovers early, maybe getting some cheap points early. That's something that you definitely don't want to have, especially with a true freshman or redshirt freshman quarterback having to be put under too much levels of anxiety. So turnovers has to be the focal point. You think about Auburn, when you turn the ball over with Gus Malzahn, you disappear. You think about Rock Thomas. They call Rock Thomas a bust. No, Rock Thomas couldn't protect the football. I'm even looking at video of 2018, and more often than not, when Cam Martin was healthy, he was actually the featured back. Why? Boobie Whitlow has ball protection issues. Even in some plays where he does protect the ball, his ball protection is shaky. Now, to his defense, he is not a natural running back. He played quarterback in high school. So he's still having to kind of solidify those fundamentals as a running back, especially at the SEC level. And even with all that going on, still managed to have almost 700 yards. Without injury, would have been 1,000 yards easy. So the premise of all this is keeping an eye on the ball protection. That's going to be the factor which determines your quarterback, which determines who starts at running back or who gets the most touches at running back, who can protect the ball. Because, ESPN actually has Auburn, I think, 56% favorite over 44% for Oregon, which is kind of, borderline even, could go either way. But one of the key factors of this is going to be who can protect the football, especially who can protect the football early. And also, the middle of the third quarter is one of the more important parts of the game, especially in a dogfight where you're kind of waiting on a team to make a mistake. Protect the ball in the middle of the third quarter. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. We're talking Auburn football like it's nobody's business. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and comment. And just remember, guys, on this channel, it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.